What's up, guys? This is Kefis. I am legally blind and I am playing World of Warcraft yet again. Standing in front of the target dummies yet again. And what I wanted to do today was as sort of a follow-up video to my last video. If you haven't seen it, in my latest video I talked about how I play Warcraft as a legally blind gamer, how my UI is set up, the fact that I put an Xbox 360 controller and I use macros. And what I wanted to do today was demonstrate / test out some macros, and I thought I'd share the experience with you guys. Basically what I'm going to do is see how different classes benefit from this playstyle. In other words, I try to make macros for every class because I like to play just about every class in the game, and I want to see if it works as well for other classes as it does for my Paladin. I'm currently playing my Paladin, and he is my best geared class by far. I mean, he's really the only one I play. I mean, it still takes a lot of effort to really gear up your class to the current level, and my guy isn't even at the current level. So Kefis is 523 item level. He has gems and enchants, and he has everything set up. He's got reforge and everything. So the only thing I don't have going for me is I don't have food buffs, raid buffs, and flasks. I'm just going to give myself my own pally buff, and we're going to hop in here, and again we're going to do some DPS. And before I do that, just so you know, if you haven't seen it already, the way I do this is using a macro system with a mod called Macro Toolkit. I can extend the size of macros so I can put abilities in like this, and basically if I'm lucky and depending on the class, I can achieve a one button macro spam where my class will perform adequate DPS, maybe even above average DPS depending on who I'm playing with, and perform well enough to succeed in a raid, which is the goal, by the way. It's not to be like the top of the charts and beat like the top raiding guilds. It's to do enough damage on my part to provide enough resources to my raid team, or whatever, however you want to put it. So basically I want to play well enough to be serious, right? But obviously I don't take it that seriously. I really could care less. But so what we're going to do is we're just going to check out the DPS now. We're going to hop up behind this dude, and we're going to just unload on this target dummy. So I'm blowing all my cooldowns. I'm going to throw up Inquisition, and then I'm going to sit here and I'm just going to hold this button and see what happens. So we're going to cycle through our abilities. We're building up holy power. As you can see, there are times when this macro isn't perfect, and I'll have 5 holy power and he'll still cast something else. So it's not perfect, but when I look at my DPS and I'm hovering around 170,000, sometimes I'll break 200,000 K DPS on burst. I think that's good enough. And obviously now that the burst is gone and all the cooldowns are gone, that DPS is going to drop as it always does, and there's not much you can do about that. I mean, Pallies have cooldowns, and there are rare moments where you're not going to have much to press. So it really follows it up very well. It does all the abilities when they're off cooldown. It even does Execution Sentence and Exorcism, Hammer of Wrath, all those abilities when it's supposed to. So it really runs extremely smooth. The only thing I have to do is hit Inquisition on a separate button. Like right now is when I would hit it, and then I would keep unloading. But we're going to stop. I'm around 100k DPS off of cooldowns. So I'm satisfied with that, more or less. And I have an AoE that basically does the same thing. I'll go over here and I'll just show you that. And I have a lot of this. For a lot of classes you can achieve this. I'll just show it on my Paladin. So if we come over here to these guys, and now I'm hitting the AoE button, and basically, as you can see, it's using Divine Storm and Hammer of the Righteous instead of Crusader Strike and Templar's Verdict. And otherwise it does pretty much the exact same thing. And DPS is pretty good. Of course, these aren't on raid targets, but you get the idea. So that's how I play a Paladin. It's literally just one button for single target DPS and one button for AoE, and everything else is there for interrupts and heals and that kind of stuff. So that is the Paladin. Now what we're going to do is switch to a different class and see how successful we are with that. So I will be right back. And now we're taking a look at the Monk, and we're going to do the same exact thing. It's set up similar. The Monk, however, has less of an item level. Obviously, he's got 514, which is slightly less than the Paladin. In terms of gear, it looks like I've reforged, but I don't have. I do have enchants, obviously. So I do have. Looks like I have gemmed and enchanted this character. So yeah, it looks pretty good as far as I can tell. I have a 483 weapon, so the weapon's lower. Everything else is not bad, but I'm not expecting as much. The monk, it seems like the monk was pretty hard to macro because of how monk plays. It's very, it uses different abilities, but we're going to give it a shot. I've got Tiger's Eye Brew ready to go already, and then we're going to blow the cooldowns and burst and just see what happens. So already I can see it's messing up. It's not hitting the abilities that it needs to hit. It should be hitting Tiger's Palm right now, and it's not. So it's not perfect by any means. It's not hitting exactly what it needs to hit, but it is throwing up the Chi Blast or Chi Wave or whatever it's called. But it seems like, there it goes. So it finally did do the Tiger Palm, and now I can do Fist of Fury, which is on a separate button. And of course, Tiger's Eye Brew is set up kind of like Inquisition. It's on its own button so that I can press that when I need to, and keep that up as it's needed. So this isn't perfect, but the DPS really isn't too bad. It's not as good as the Paladin. It might be under par. I'm sure there are monks that can do a lot better. So this is probably a class that, when I was raiding with my monk, I did fine. And, of course, I wasn't using the macros. But I would probably prefer to use my Pally in a raiding system because it's a lot more smooth, it's a lot easier, and I do much better DPS when I perform the way I do with these macros. So it's not terrible, I guess, but, it's certainly not... It's not, amazing, but I'm a little bit more impressed than I thought I was going to be. Maybe I can tune it up and see what happens in the future, but for now, again, this is what it's like. You just kind of test the macros and see where you're at. So that's the monk, more or less. AoEs, basically, you just do spinning crane kick, so there's nothing to show there, and keep rising sun kick up. So there's your monk. Let's move on to the next class. Alright, and now we've got the warrior, and yes, I do have a one-button spam for the warrior as well. The only exception is heroic strike needs to be on its own button, otherwise it will dump all my rage. We don't want that, so whenever rage is kind of maxing out, I'll just hit heroic strike, which isn't a big deal. But this character has lower gear. It's a 496 item level character, which is numerically, it's not, doesn't seem like it's that much less, but this is like almost 2 tiers behind the other characters. So 496 is going to do substantially less DPS. On top of that, I do have a little bit of reforge going on, it seems, mainly just to try to get my hit and expertise up, which it's not even close. So I'm not hit capped, I'm not expertise capped. And we're also dual wielding two-handers, so that's a big deal. And my weapons aren't that great, so we're not going to see as much DPS in general. So please keep that in mind. I'm not even gemmed and enchanted, so this is like just a fun character. But I'm just testing out the macros, right? So we're going to do the same thing. And again, don't expect as much DPS because of the state of this character, not so much the performance of the macros. But this is when I get a drive to want to gear up like all my characters because I want to see how much DPS I can do with these macros. Unfortunately, that just takes up too much time. So we're just going to hit this button and see what happens. I've got charge on it. It's doing battle shout. It's casting all my cooldowns, and it looks like we're just going nuts here. We're doing bloodthirst. We're doing rage. We're doing, well, we just did, looks like slam. I don't know if we were supposed to do that. Raging blast. You can see that concussive or Colossus smash went off because the debuff was up there. So it should do that again when it comes off cooldown, which is great. In terms of DPS, I'm doing about 40k, I'd say. And I don't know if that's good at this point or not. Again, I'm not hit capped, and my item level isn't that high, and I'm not gemmed and enchanted. But the macro isn't getting stuck, and from what I can tell on, based off of what I'm looking at with my mod that's letting me know what abilities I need to hit, the only thing it's not doing is throw weapon or whatever, that heroic throw ability, which I really could care less about. So, but it looks like it's doing pretty much everything else. It's keeping all the abilities up. It's it's casting Raging Blast. It needs to cast Concussive Blast right now, but it's not. and it's doing its thing. You know, it's popping trinkets. There it goes. So there it went. It did it. Now I can hit heroic strike if I want on my own. And you know, we're getting well, we're now down about 30k. But you know, again, this is one of those classes that I would like to gear up more and see where I'm at when I gear up. And now I would like to check out the AoE on this character. Plus, she's a warrior, and it's a female panda, and she's a lot of fun to play. So I really do enjoy playing this class. But now, let's check out the AoE. We're going to go over here, and we're just going to hit the AoE button. It's going to do Blade Storm, because I've got that on the macro, and that will always go off when it's off cooldown, which is really cool. And now we're just going to do the same thing, more or less, and DPS is higher. I'm doing about double the DPS. Again, these aren't raid targets, though, so, you know, and they're level 85, so it's not really, like, amazing or anything, but it does seem to work. I just don't know if the DPS would be well when I'm geared up, and that's part of the testing, right? So if I ever gear this class up, I really enjoy playing the warrior a lot, but the macros do seem to function properly, which is what I'm trying to gauge. So there's that. Now let's move on to the next class. Alright, and now we're playing the Hunter, more specifically the Survival Hunter, and I am using a cat because his name is Cat, because I don't name my pets because I'm too cool for that, and we do once again have a one button spam macro for him. Now, let's check out his gear. He's got 494 item level, which is a little bit lower than even the 496 warrior. It looks like he is hit and expertise cap. I think that's what actually he's way above hit cap, but he isn't gemmed and enchanted. I don't even think he's reforged. I didn't even bother with him either. He looks like he does have my warrior, by the way, didn't have anything in the Ghost Iron Dragonling, so he didn't have the cogs, but it looks like my hunter does. I've got a 450 item level weapon, so it's gonna, again, it's not gonna be as high as like the Paladin or even the monk, because it's not gemmed, enchanted, or geared up very high. But we just want to see if the macro works and what all it can do. So we're going to unload now. Hitting the button down. Looks like it's doing Dire Beast because it summoned my second beast. It's summoning the Murder of Crows, which is cool. It did Glaive Toss. It's casting Arcane Shot. It needs to cast Black Arrow. It should sooner or later. It should have already, but hopefully it will. There it goes. So now Black Arrow's off. It's using Explosive Shot because it's off cooldown. And the really cool thing is when everything is off cooldown, it is casting Cobra Shot for me. So it's almost like the macro knows and I don't even have to pay attention because I have Cobra Shot on my bar just in case, but it looks like it's working. So it's casting Arcane Shot, it's casting Explosive Shot, and it may not do it right away, but it does get around to casting Black Arrow. And there, see, now it's working. So Black Arrow's off, it's casting Dire Beast, Murder of Crows, and all the abilities on the talent tree. So that's really important. It looks like it's doing a really good job of keeping Explosive Arrow off. I'm also doing around 60k DPS, which I think, for my item level and for the gear that I have, and for the fact that it's not gemmed and enchanted, and based on the performance of the macro, it's doing pretty good. So if I were to take time to gear up my hunter, I might have a really good ranged class to play with even in a raiding situation. So it's something to think about, and I really enjoy playing the hunter. It's like one of my favorite classes. So you know, there's that. Now if I was to switch to AoE, all it would do is instead of casting Arcane Shot, it would cast Multi-Shot. So the AoE isn't that important, it's not that different. It would basically do the same thing otherwise. So there's your hunter. We're going to move on to our final class of this test. And last but not least, we have the Death Knight. As you can tell, I am a huge fan of the plate melee classes, and I am a Frost two-handed Death Knight. It's been a while since I've played him, but he does have a macro set up, so we're going to check it out. Let's look at his gear. He's only at 487, so he's even less geared than the other characters. He is hit and expertise capped, as it looks. But other than that, he's got some pretty, I mean, he's got 437 trinket, you know, obviously, but he does have a lot of the Timeless Isle stuff going for him, so there is that. But he is lacking in a couple areas. He isn't gemmed and enchanted. He's not reforged. So again, don't expect too much. But we do have a macro, so we're just going to test it out and see what happens. Walk up and start unloading. And there you go. So we're just going to sit here and hold the button down and see what happens. He is casting Horn of Winter. Yes. So it's casting Horn of Winter. It looks like it's using the abilities. It's keeping the plagues on, the diseases, I mean. And I'm doing about 65 DP or 65k DPS right now. So that's pretty good. But let's see. We're going to keep it running for just a second and see what happens. It's, you know, a lot of these macros. The thing is they're not perfect on time. All the time, they're certainly not going to, you know, always be perfect when it comes to like, ooh, it should be casting Howling Blast right now, but it's not, but it will here in a second. So sometimes they need to correct themselves, and it's not perfect. But I just look at the DPS numbers, and what we're looking at now is it seems that I'm doing about between 55 to 60k DPS, and it looks like it's maintaining that. So based on my item level and the fact that I'm not gemmed and I'm not, you know, enchanted and all that stuff, I think that's pretty good, but I'm not 100% sure. Like I said, with all these classes, you guys let me know what you think, you know, because I'm sure a lot of you play more and you're a lot more in touch with how much DPS a person should be doing with all this going on. So, you know, hey, if I ever gear these other guys up, you know, if I ever get the time and I get the the drive to put forth the effort to do it, maybe I will. But there you have it. There are just some of the classes that I play that I have maxed out at level 90, and as you can see, I am able to, at the very least, play them with macros. And if I don't raid with them all, at least I can run around and do stuff with them and have fun at my leisure, which is good enough for me. So there you have it. This is Kephis, testing out some macros, having fun in WoW. I hope you enjoyed this. Have a wonderful day. Until next time.